Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Marie and Lionel. We're so happy to have you with us this morning. We're blessed. I have Lionel with me this morning. I am so excited. And I pray that he stays with me this morning because we had some glitches last week and the week before, and we are trying to resolve those issues. But we're happy to have you. Lionel, good morning to you. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Giving thanks. Giving thanks. We have a lot to be thankful for, so I'm giving thanks.
Right.
Well, welcome everyone to the show this morning. Thank you. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Marie and Lionel. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. How are you managing this ash? Because a lot of people would not have seen us since the ash. How are you managing the ash this morning?
Ah, ah, in every bad situation, there's always a blessing, and I really think that this is a blessing where this ash is concerned in terms of our crops and so forth, and in terms of the human element of it. Yes, it has taken a toll on us. I was assisting a friend of mine, buddy of mine, yesterday, and doing some cleaning and cleanup of the ash and so forth, and it's a challenge. You have on goggles, you have on a mask, you have on a face shield, your clothes, long pants, long sleeves, and the particles are so fine that
Yes.
even
Yes.
though you have on two masks, it's really difficult working in both masks exalt cause some breathing issues, but it's a challenge. But at the same time, I think that is a blessing that we all can learn from. I would like to see government and the various agriculture agencies
Right.
utilizing the ash in the gardens, in the farmlands, and so forth. I don't think it should be dumped and thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
managing. I'm managing.
I I did some cleaning, and you know, I think what got to me was I had to do a lot of research, and I realized that with the ash, because the volcano we are experiencing from St. Vincent is a bit different, the
Right.
material. And apparently, I understand
Yes.
the ash is a bit finer. So, because of that, I'm actually sprinkling water and then moving it because I don't want to be one to upset somebody else. So rather than have it blowing all over the place, I'm actually, just drizzling a little water because they tell us to conserve water as well. And of course, people are using
Correct.
hoses and power wash and that kind of stuff. So I think I'm seeing it working for me once I just wet it a little bit, not douse it, and it
Hmm.
moves so much better and it doesn't come up with that dust in my face. So I feel so much comfortable doing that. And I can't stay out too long with it because obviously I suffer with sinuses. My husband suffers with sinuses. So it's not very good for me or the children. And what I found with the ash, it also is helping my garden to grow better. Depends on what garden you have, but my garden is
Well,
looking
yeah,
much
okay.
better.
You spoke about using water
Hmm.
yesterday while assisting him because we were cleaning
Hmm.
the tennis court, which is a synthetic court, and we
Right.
could not use any water at all. Right? We had to use brooms and
Hmm.
terrace and get right into the fiber of the synthetic fibers in order to
Hmm.
get the dust out. And as much as ash dust out, and as much as you do that, you still see more kicking up. So I mean that's a long process in terms of the amount of work that has to be done on the court. But we could not
Yeah.
use water at all because water then
With
mixing with the
damage.
ash, but then it becomes like cement between the synthetic grass material.
Yes.
So there's a big difference there. So it was really manual labor that we
Yeah.
employed yesterday with no water.
Yeah. 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 It's hard.
But we
It's
could not
hard.
use water anyhow. Yes.
Yeah. But it's hard. And
Is it
everybody's
is it based on that when you're outside sweeping you use sprinkles of water in order to dampen the dust. That's a Bajan tradition.
You think? They don't do that? Then I'm not seeing that happening. I'm not seeing that happening at all. I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we still have.
the prime minister spoke about it in her press conference.
I
So
know,
yeah, it's a
but
Bajan tradition.
she
She's
was
correct.
just doing this for some people. They weren't listening, Lionel. They weren't listening. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing about it, we are not being our brother's keepers because there's some instances, and there was an acquaintance of ours who was on the news and actually got people within her community to come together and help clean up their street. I'm not sure if you got to see that snippet on CBC News, but she did
Yes,
go
I
out
did.
there. And I mean, you must congratulate individuals like that because it's important that you come together as a community to help each other. Because within communities, as many as we have in Barbados, we've got a lot of seniors who can't even sweep. They sit at the window and now they can't sit at the window to peep out. And these things are now affecting
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
It's very drastic. We're now gonna get um I'm sure we're gonna get some water wars because we're not getting that rain. And when we do get that rain, I pray that most of this ash goes. They had another eruption yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure
Yes.
what
Yes.
it's going to be like. So
Yeah.
I pray that
And
it would change.
man, there are water woes because I have a friend who lives in Sharp Hill and they're out of water. And I
Mm-hmm.
think St. Joseph might be facing some issues as well with water.
Mm.
So yes, there will be some water issues that are occurring
Yeah,
across the island. We need
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
desalination plants
yeah.
throughout Barbados. That's what we need.
And the Minister of Blue Economy and Maritime, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Humphrey, said that within the fish markets, they're actually using salt water to power wash the markets.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, I think, um, has been closed indefinitely. They can't open it. Um, I'm trying to remember which one I saw with that. They said that that particular one cannot be open, and the markets in St. James would remain closed indefinitely. Of course, they're working on the Bridgetown and Oistins. So,
Right.
and they're cleaning it very meticulously because of the various standards, phy- phytosanitary standards that they have to keep to. So, I have to commend them for that, and to see even the fire service coming out to help, which is very good. Now,
Many
before
hands
I
make light work. Many hands
That's right.
makes light work.
That's right. Now, before I forget, for you folks who are now joining us, we have our special guest with us, all the way from the US of A, and that is Leah Martindale Stansel. She is joining us this morning. We're happy to have her join us, and we're going to bring her in with us right about now. Good morning, Leah. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. There's no ash here, so I'm pretty good.
Well, tell us how the weather is over there.
Actually, today it's very sunny. It's a pretty day. It's cool. I think in Celsius, thinking maybe it's about 19 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees maybe, but
Oh,
it's
it's nice.
sunny.
Okay. I see a
Yeah,
little sunshine coming from the window.
yeah. Last week though, you guys were talking about not having much rain, and we had all of your rain last week. Last week it was tough. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana, and so here floods pretty easily, and it was raining a lot. It's storming, raining. Every day last week it rained, and it rained pretty badly. But
Wow.
yesterday was a pretty day. Today is a pretty day. I do not think we have any rain scheduled. I'm not one to pay much attention to the weather as much as I should. I'm the one that's inside about to leave, and then all of a sudden it rains, and I'm like, wait, it's raining
It's
today? My husband is much more aware of the weather, and he's the one that communicates. Leah, it's going to be cold today. Leah, you might not want to leave the house in the shorts because it's supposed to be cold today. Leah, it's going to be rainy today. Make sure you take an umbrella. Like he's
Ah,
informs me of what the weather is going to be like. But today it's sunny, it's pretty, which was a big change from last week.
okay, so he's your weatherman.
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. He's the
Well,
weatherman.
what we do on mornings, we usually get, as we say, fuzzy and
Okay.
wuzzy with our guests. And Lionel, you want to say something?
Oh, he's frozen.
Well, that's our little hiccups we've been getting these last 2 Mondays. But he's there.
I think
I think he's hearing us. Go ahead, Lai. You wanted to say something?
I want to say good morning, Leah. Thanks for joining us. I know you're still hearing loud and clear. So welcome to Keeping It Real with Marie and Lionel. I'm sure a lot of people on the island would be happy to see you because I'm very sure they haven't seen you in a long while. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
And with what we do on mornings, I know some of the things you're going to be familiar with because you still have family in Barbados. And
Yes.
of course, you would have been in contact with them to find out how they're doing. Some of us may have experienced this ash. I've never experienced the ash in Barbados. And but my husband would have. They keep saying to me it's a different type of ash. It wasn't this long. You're actually now hearing stories, and people are saying to you, "Oh, I have a bottle of ash. I have to look for it." So imagine you're holding a bottle of ash for 40 something years. And I'm wondering, what? So, it's supposed to educate you, and it affords persons to really reminisce about, all of these things. We're not accustomed to it. The sad part is that it caused another lockdown.
Oh,
Um, People were saying, "Oh, well, you weren't wearing the mask before." Well, you definitely have to wear the mask now, and people have doubled up on masks. They're wearing the visors on their face. They're wearing long sleeves. And I mean, it's just like a whole turnaround here in Barbados. But I don't know. I guess that's how things will be for us for the time being, and we have to just adjust to it. Now,
I heard somebody mention to me that you all talked about sprinkling some water to make it easier to sweep. But I thought
yes,
that if you put water on there, that it made it hard. Like,
no, not to spray, not douse it. Like when you
oh,
just sprinkle water,
oh, okay,
just to settle the actual dust. Because don't
okay,
forget, when you sweep, it's going to come up. So
yes,
when you just
yes,
sprinkle it with a little bit of water and you push, you don't get the dust. It's just going to
okay,
push, and then you can shovel it and then put it. So it's not going to come up as much because
okay,
I suffer with sinuses. So that part, all the particles getting on your clothes, your nostrils, your mouth. Well, you're
yeah,
supposed to wear a mask. So once you wet it, it really and truly helps you to clean it up a little bit more easier. It might
mm-hmm,
become a little heavy, but still,
yeah,
it's still a little easier.
okay,
I know that you may not know a lot. You might not follow the weather, but I know you follow what's happening home.
yes,
Um, Yesterday's paper had something pertaining to something that you all guys are experiencing over in the U.S., and it's a big day today. The National Guard has been called in to um, Minneapolis, I think it is.
mm,
Um, there's an article in yesterday's paper. I really like you don't follow the weather. I try to follow as much of the news here, but some of the news you might not reach you.
right,
And I think Lionel might be able to follow on with this particular one, where it has similarities to the George Floyd case, which I didn't even realize transpired last year, April. It's about a year now. And
Mhm.
it's about a police officer who had actually placed his knee. Now, this incident happened before George Floyd. His case was happened, I think, the 23rd of May 2020, whereas this case happened April 10th, 2020, where a young man who it is alleged has a history of a mental health issue died on April 10th last year, where a police was allegedly who has allegedly put his foot on his neck to subdue him when he was acting out of control. Now, when you read the article, it continues to explain that the police who arrived at the scene did not have handcuffs to, hold this individual, and he had to use this excessive force to subdue the person for more than 10 minutes. They took him up, put him in the police van, and then it was broadcast that he died while in custody of the police. Now, I'm not sure if Lionel got wind of that story last year to this year, but how do you think the similarities would be with um, what's happening here in Barbados and what's happening overseas? Looks as if I'm going to lose Lionel again. Did you ever hear about this case in Barbados, Leah?
So the case you just described was something that happened in Barbados?
Yes, last year.
Oh, wow.
Couple of weeks before the George Floyd. But of course, a lot of people keep things hush hush.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I didn't see it. So when it's big and bold in the paper yesterday, and it's now, of course, it's being presided or was previously presided by Andrew Pilgrim, Queen's Counsel, and now the case is also being followed up by Michael Lashley QC, who was now hired by the family, and they're now suing wrongful death. So I'm shocked that something you right now you're seeing it where you are, so
Mm-hmm.
everybody's following it, but to now hear and realize that we have a similar situation here in Barbados happening, I think it brings a different perspective to what's happening in Barbados with what's happening in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
What say you, Lionel?
Uh-oh.
Not sure if he's hearing me.
Yeah, maybe not. I think that I think it's interesting, and the possible similarities come from maybe the lack of training of
I
policemen.
read, I read about it, and it seems there's a similar, yeah, there's a similar.
Lionel has paused again.
Yeah, he's frozen.
I love it. I just laugh when he does that. But you were giving your point, Leah. Give your point.
Yeah, so my point was that I think the similarities kind of boils down to training, lack
Mm-hmm.
of training of police officers, or at least giving them an opportunity to learn more in terms of different situations that may come up.
Mm-hmm.
How do you de-escalate a situation as opposed to make it worse? I think that it's not only a matter of teaching policemen to de-escalate a situation that may pop up, but also teaching them how to be more in tune with their own emotions and
Mm-hmm.
to control their own emotions as it relates to when they are in a pressure situation.
Mm-hmm.
How do they handle that? How do they keep themselves in check and not be so reactive under pressure? Because
Mm-hmm.
essentially it's being under pressure. They're whether or not they feel like their life is being threatened, or if they, they're panicking because they don't know what is happening, or is it that they're reacting because they want to show that they're in charge, and and I think that is an important, it boils down to training.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's like the similarities that I can think of, and unfortunately, we need to do a better job of it somehow.
Now, you've lived overseas for many years, and most of your time, I understand, might have been spent mostly in Florida, and
Yeah.
now you had to move to New Orleans. What would have been your experience, if at all, following any of these things? And notably, we were going to get a little bit closer to your journey, but just to bring into a piece where right now you're married, interracial marriage, and
Hmm.
we've been taught not to look at color. Like myself, I'm obviously from a mixed family. You would have a mixed family, and we tend not to see color. We teach our children not to see color, and when we go into that environment now and we're seeing it live on television, what do you say to things like this when we talk about discrimination and racial um, profiling? What's your say on that? Because it's equilibrium has changed a bit now for you.
Yeah. It's funny because I think that, um, like you said, being born and raised in Barbados, the situation's a little different than it is here. But it's funny, not until George Floyd's death did and the I would say the education related to racial inequality and justice became more prevalent. The discussions became more open. Did certain things that happened to me earlier on when I first moved here, did I then realize, oh, that is why that happened, and because prior to that, I would think, you know, like for example, jobs. Obviously, I'm in swimming. In the States, it's a very white sport. Um, and so it was very eye opening for me to listen to other Black swimmers who are from here and the different stories that they experienced. And one of the biggest things for me was um, when I swam in Barbados, I would hear Black people can't swim, bones are too bent. I would hear that stuff, but
Hmm.
I would always be so confused because I was surrounded by Black people, and
Hmm.
I really did not understand. But I didn't take it to heart because I knew that wasn't the case because I was surrounded by Black people that swam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, but hearing my friends who are Black, who were raised here, and the experience that they had when in competing and not being able to have that representation, it
Hmm.
it makes me think that I was privileged. I was privileged in the sense that I did not it wasn't something that I thought about. It wasn't something
Right.
that concerned me. It wasn't something. I had a friend tell me once that she would swim in swim meets, she would place first, and someone else would get the first place finish because she would be the
What?
only. Yes, she's. I've heard stories like they would touch the wall and the scoreboard will shut off, so she couldn't see her. Like just little subtle things like that. That you're just like, that's so horrible, and I never experienced that, and
Wow.
so um, not being from here, and as I said, certain things happening were like, oh, okay, now that completely makes sense. And it comes with um, my job, just being able
Mm.
to, like, now I'm very fortunate, you know, I choose to believe that God has perfect timing. Now
Yes.
I can be very, I have this thing in the back of my head that, let me put it this way. The enemy is good at switching my brain off, like in terms of keeping my focus on God. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe that God has perfect timing. I believe that I have a purpose and God has a plan for me.
Yes.
But there's times where I think back where I know a lot of my white counterparts, whether they're female or male, get opportunities or encouragement to apply for certain jobs or interest in certain jobs. And I would always think it was because I had a family. Maybe they think that I wouldn't leave where I was at. So I would always make excuses why I wouldn't be in the running or I wouldn't have the name to, my name wouldn't be put in or brought up for certain jobs. And I truly think that a big part of that is, you know, first of all, I'm not from here. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
like American. And the second of all, I'm a person of color. So it was hard coming to that realization. And I came to the realization because, again, I spoke to another friend and I spoke to a friend and she was like, that's just the way it is. So it's scary. It's scary bringing up specifically it's scary bringing up a son who is Black, obviously, and you know, he's of mixed race, as you mentioned, and you know, I happened to ask him in passing. He's 13. I happened to at the time last year he was 12, but I happened to ask him if he felt divided, like felt divided or guilty for being mixed race, and I
Mm-hmm.
be asking him it, not really expecting a response, and I was shocked to hear him say yes. It's really hard for me. And I
Wow.
did for him. And I felt, and I said, I asked him why. And my son can drive me crazy, but he's an extremely intelligent kid. And he just said, I just feel like I have to choose sides. And I was like, you do not need to choose sides. Like,
Right.
you just need to make sure to respect people and just be aware.
Correct.
Be
Correct.
aware of, you know, it's tough having to have those conversations with him of, you know, if for whatever reason a policeman stops you, you're to be respectful because he loves to like say his side of the story. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I need you to understand that you do not need to say your side of the story if a policeman stops. Even if you think it's unfair, even if you think it's unreasonable, your only responses need to be yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. So just having that discussion with him is hard.
Okay, you're having that discussion. What about his dad? Because
It's
most
just,
of the time you hear a, a mother of color speaking
mhm.
to their mixed child. What
Mhm.
about the parent who is of that color where it's different?
Yes,
You know what I mean? Why would it be
yes,
coming from somebody like us? Well,
right,
to me, it's always money who does the talking. But when it's the white color, it is not really white, but you know, why is it that party, the individual, to speak to that mixed child? If you see where I'm coming from.
yes, no, I understand. And I ever since you know, the George Floyd, and I always consider George Floyd to be a turning point in
Mm-hmm.
this country. Yes, there were numerous other deaths that occurred,
Yes.
um, and unfortunately occurred. But I think George Floyd's, for essentially the entire world watching that death, and I
Mm-hmm.
watched it, and it was extremely traumatizing for me to watch. I was traumatized when you know, after watching that. And so since then, I would say at first my husband was a little uncomfortable, simply because, similar to me, he definitely did not have experiences, and he did not, whenever you, and this was definitely the case for me, not being brought up here, I was legitimately scared, because it
Yeah.
wasn't like I had personal experience to draw from, to
Right.
say, when this happened to me, I did X. So when that happened to me, I did Y. Like, I didn't have that. And that was a really hard realization for me to grasp. So I kind of essentially just went into trying to educate myself as best as possible to help my son. And so, to answer your question as it relates to my husband, the discussion he has with him is along the lines of, I did not have to go through this. But
Yes.
this, unfortunately, is something that you're going to have to experience, you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to be aware of. Um, and so, I think it's a comfort level with my husband in terms of making sure to be there. He's for sure there for my son, to
Yeah.
help him and to navigate it. Fortunately, my son has not encountered much discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
He has had some fortunate things said to him.
Right.
Um, uh, but I think that my husband is very aware of the circumstance, and he's also just trying to navigate and educate himself to be the best support. And it's
Right.
funny because, I definitely have this discussion more with my son than I do with my daughters. Um,
Right.
my daughters, it's a little bit different discussion. It's more along the lines of, you're going to have to work. I tell this to my son also, even before George Floyd. Unfortunately, you're going to have to work that much harder and stand out that much more as you progress, when you go to school, when you're in college, when you have a job. Um, Unfortunately, I'm hoping by the time you get my age, it's going to be more equitable.
Yeah.
That's something that it's hard for a child to understand.
Yeah.
First of all, why do I have to do my homework? Or I do more than I need to do. So that type of information I try to convey, especially to my daughter. Well, I have two daughters. One is 5. She doesn't care. She's just existing. Um, my older daughter, who's 10, she works very hard at school, and
Yeah. She's the
I
same age as my daughter. So
yes. So it keeps it for me, having a son, um, a kid of color, like a boy of color. It was very scary for me.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's scary for me to
Yeah.
all these things happening, and having to keep him in check. And
Yes. Yes. It's a lot of work as a parent, regardless of color. I don't think the color comes in when you're parenting.
Mhm.
It is something that somehow is just thrown at you, because when we're growing up, we're not understanding what our parents are going through, and our parents didn't understand what their parents were going through. So it's
Right.
like a whole domino effect, and each era is different.
Yeah.
Right now, we have so much things against us than for us when we're actually trying to rear our children in this environment. And the difficulty is not a difficult. I don't think it's a difficulty. I think we now have to do a lot more talking than in
Mhm.
our parents' time, because there's so much things out there now. You have the computer, you have the tablets, you have the phones, and you have the television. So I find as parents, we now have to tend to sit down and talk a lot more, you know. So we know that today is going to be a changing day in this case. And we pray that others out there really and truly get the verdict, I would say. that they're looking for. I know that the family has gone through so much. Other families have gone through some similar incidences, and I'm sure all of them are waiting with bated breath to see what's happening and praying.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's going to be about to be a bunch of construction.
Yeah, the same thing out here in Barbados, so don't worry. um, that's happening overseas, and we're going to be glued to the television when that result comes in, because we know that they're going to do their speeches today. We're not sure if the jury's going to come back with the verdict today or tomorrow, so we're going to follow that. But let's go on a bit more about the Leah Martindale, because we know your Leah Martindale standstill now. We're going to come home a bit and tell us, how did you decide to get into swimming? What was your attachment to that sport?
Swimming was my social outlet. That was where I hung out with my friends. I think that, I mean, I started swimming because my parents had my older brother and sister swimming, and they wanted me to learn how to swim. And I just eventually progressed into, training and competing. And it was really just a social outlet.
Just a
Somewhere.
social outlet. I like how you put it.
Yeah,
But
it
you know,
was. It really was.
think about it, like my dad was a swimmer. He swam for the Casuarina swim meet. I'm talking about years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He swam with people like David Farmer, Dr. Carl Watson, the late Maurice Foster. Um, I can go on and on. But
Yes.
what has happened here in Barbados, well, it was last year, and I think the Prime Minister saw it, that if we live on an island, we should know how to swim. And the Ministry of Blue Economy and Maritime started a swim program for free for the locals to come and learn how to swim.
Oh, good.
And fantastic. My daughter took part. A lot of kids had the opportunity to go out and learn how to swim. Even adults wanted to take part. And I think some adults might have had the opportunity to learn to swim as well. So I think it was a very good initiative. I hope they will continue with it when everything lifts, because everything has been come to a standstill. Um, and I'm sure if you were here, you would have been part of that program. And I think things like that help the children to be part of that. But your years really started at St. Michael's Secondary School, and a little birdie told me that your sister, Claudia, Dr. Claudia Martindale, I should say, had some instrumental aspect of you really continuing in that sport. Can you enlighten us a bit more on that?
Um, I mean, honestly, it was my entire family. My Claudia actually was the one to take me to the beach. She also went to St. Michael, but Claudia wasn't. She and I were not at St. Michael at the same time.
No.
But yeah, she was a big part of it. I think when I was younger, and if we went to any competitions, she would go along with the team, and she will swim. She swam also in the meets as well. And as I said, I probably did not take swimming as seriously as I probably should have in my younger years. As I said, it was a social outlet for me. It was a place where I went to hang out with people. And so one time we went to a meet, I think it was in Guadeloupe, and she came with me, and I don't even ask me what meet it was. I don't even know.
That's all
I don't
right.
even know. But yeah, and my first Carifta, she was in Jamaica at med school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she and my mother were the two that kind of kept me going, especially my mother as I got older, because, as you get older, things get a little bit tougher. And
Yes. Tell me about it.
a whole lot of more distractions, and yeah, and so like my mother probably kept me, while Claudia was away at medical school. My mother was the one to keep me in check a lot of the time. But swimming was always my social place.
So,
Where one time I went to practice and I was playing around so much that I got thrown out of practice.
oh Lord.
Anything of it. I was like, okay. And I went and I played, and my mother came to pick me up, and she was like, "Why aren't you swimming?" I was like, "Oh, I was coached at the time. I was coached by Ronald Mosley and Dr. Ronald Mosley, and I was like, Uncle Ronald let me get out, and she's like, "What?" So she went to Uncle Ronald, and he told her she was playing around, so I just told her to get out. She got so angry at me.
Oh Lord.
You don't waste his time. You don't waste my time. And I had a good time because I was playing around, but yeah, I never did it. I never did it again after that because she went off on me. She was not happy with me at all.
Oh my Lord.
So.
Well, we have a gentleman who's joining us this morning. He's also Dubai, which says that he's somehow family, because in case we had a little hiccup with Lionel, we just had a backup, which would be Alimayu Dubai. Morning, Alimayu. Welcome to the show. Can you hear us?
Morning.
And
Yeah, I can
I
hear you.
introduced you to Leah, and we're here talking about her journey to swimming. Now, we journeyed from your school, and we're picking up your journey as far as Trinidad. There was a gentleman by the name of Anthony Nesty. He's now known as a renowned swim coach. And for a lot of people who may not know, historically, he also made his mark beating Matt Biondi, the diver Matt Biondi, in the 1988 games in Seoul in the 100-meter butterfly final, becoming the one and only Olympic champion for Suriname. What was it like working with Anthony Nesty as a coach?
Anthony's like my big brother. We talk all the time. He's awesome. He's probably, I would consider him my mentor for sure. He I don't even know how to explain it. Anthony's very even keel, very even keel. And I enjoy making fun of him and he's very humble. He's has a lot of humility. But he's also a lot of fun. And so as I said, I consider him one of my mentors, and I look to him for a lot of guidance, a lot of help in how to navigate my own team, and how to train. He and his wife are a big support system for me. They have a very strong faith, and the one that he and his wife I reach out to a lot if I need prayers, if I need help. So yeah, he's awesome. Anthony's awesome.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think he still coaches in Florida. Am I correct?
Yes, he's now the head coach at the University of Florida.
Okay. Now for you, I followed you mainly on the news. And what I admired about you, you were so young, 18, 19, and your parents letting you go so far, but not far, but a lot of your training was done in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
And you're tall and you were well built. I wish I had that built. Muscles. I can't do the butterfly to save my life. But what really was your preferred stroke? I'm going to get to the different types, but what was your preferred stroke? What did you feel comfortable with?
I was sprint freestyle. That was my primary events. In college, you have to have 3 events, and so my 2 primary ones was sprint freestyle, 50 and 100 freestyle, and then my 3rd event was 100 fly. So I was more of a sprint freestyler than I was a flyer.
Okay. Now, when you went to the Olympics, were you shaking in your knees?
Honestly, no. Mainly because up to that point, I'd competed at a lot of different international competitions.
Hmm.
And so by the time I had got to Olympics, I had already competed against those people multiple times. So I probably was not as nervous as I should have been.
Right. So you
Yeah,
had this, you had like surreal feeling already. It was already there. But I mean, you were going to be swimming with the best of the best. And when you got in the finals, now I think you made a mark that a lot of people may not realize or forgotten. But you were the first, let me say this, première in French, the first black female to make a finals on the 50-meter freestyle. How did you feel about that as a Barbadian?
I people say that, but I'm not 100% sure that I was. I know that Edith, and I don't remember her last name, from Curacao, had
Mhm.
made finals, definitely, and medal. She was silver in the 100 freestyle, um, but I'm not 100% sure if she. I don't even know if they had the 50 freestyle then, but I do know she definitely had medaled prior to me
Mhm.
at the Olympics in the 100 freestyle. And so I
You didn't place, you came fifth.
I did place fifth. I did place fifth. And but she won a silver against like the West German doped up people. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Like that's way more impressive than my 5th place finish in the 50
Well,
free.
just in case folks don't remember this, I don't even know if it's in English.
And away, and Lee got a pretty good start too. Alongside her, the 2 Americans quickly in a stroke. Martino would be the leader. Van Dyken is coming through. Leah is looking strong across in 7. Meshiakova is there as well. In the centre, Lee alongside her. Van Dyken, these 2 have pulled away. Lee and Van Dyken, Martino falling off the pace. Lee's in front. Van Dyken is going with a stroke for stroke. About 5 metres to swim. Van Dyken maybe getting the upper hand. I think she did. She did. Van Dyken has won.
When she won that race, did she speak with you? When people actually win a race, do they come up and speak to their other competitors at
No,
such a level? No?
no, no, no.
What?
You mean if Amy Van Dyken spoke to me?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the
No,
race, do they come out
no,
and no?
no,
Oh my
no,
God.
no, not at all. The only person that spoke to me um, from the US team at the time, the only one that spoke to me when I went to the warm down pool, Gary Hall Jr. told me could swim. He was the only, like, and I had never spoken to him. Um, I never interacted with him. So that was cool. I thought that was very nice of him to say. I doubt he even remembers even doing that, but yeah, he was the only one.
Well, what's it
And by the way,
like?
my husband corrected me. It's East German, not West German. East German.
German.
That
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
East, west, no
Thanks,
south.
Mike.
What What I find intriguing when you think of swimming in Barbados, I know you're overseas. Um, you're now the, let me get it right because I can't see. You're at Tulane University, and you're now the new swimming and diving head coach.
Mhm.
Congratulations. I think that
Thank
was
you.
awarded to you in 2018. So you've been now at
Yes.
that post for the last three or so years now.
Yes.
Congratulations. I know, as you said earlier, you're in a position now that mostly white folks would be in. How is it for you now being a woman of color and holding such a high esteemed position at a university?
Um, I, it's fine. I mean, consider myself a double whammy,
Ah,
meaning a woman and I'm Black.
yeah.
But I think the biggest I don't know what the right word is to say. The biggest effect maybe is more being a woman than it is being a person of color, in the
Hmm.
sense that, if we travel somewhere, I have a male assistant. I have a male swimming assistant and a male diving coach. And then my first 2 years, I had a male graduate assistant,
Hmm.
and they are more likely, if we walked on the pool deck or if we walked into a restaurant, for example, and knew we were a team, my male assistants would be the ones to be approached first before people approached me first.
Wow.
Things like that, where the assumption is one of the males is the head coach as opposed to the female walking in. Uh,
Hmm.
that happens on the regular. Or I've also when I first started coaching, sometimes people think I'm an athlete, and I'm like, I don't. Either you guys don't know what an athlete looks like, or like I must look really young for you to think that I'm one of the athletes. so, so
Oh,
those subtle things happen all the time. Um,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of the time, sometimes, on the pool deck itself, it doesn't happen as much
Hmm.
simply because people know that I'm the head coach. So on the
Right.
pool deck itself, it doesn't happen as
Hmm.
much, but it's usually at a hotel. We go to check in at a hotel.
Right.
Um, if we go into a restaurant, like that's where it, it happens, but not typically on a pool deck.
Okay. Okay. Now,
Um,
with sport, you've got to keep your health up, and I'm sure as a coach, you drill your team to do the right thing, eat healthy. You have to exercise to be good in the pool. All of those things, and something that some persons may not know. And for record, you're now a survivor. God bless you on that. And
thank you.
I know that it was a journey with family and friends. You did state that your husband was your sole guide and support and strength. As a survivor from breast cancer, what is your advice to those out there who may be experiencing it and knowing that you're an athlete or was an athlete? Some people don't expect to have to go through something like that. What's your advice, you know, in how to move forward? Because I can see and I have followed and noticed that you are and have moved forward. What's your advice?
Um, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You have good days, you have bad days. But I think the biggest thing that I learned was just to take one day at a time. Like you said, as an athlete, I, I right before I got diagnosed, I felt extremely healthy. I was finally like, you know, moving in the direction of getting out of, you know, after you have a child, you know, you just feel sluggish and you're trying to get into being fit. And I was just
Yeah.
getting back into that point.
Mhm.
And so being diagnosed was like, I liken it to being hit across the face and hit by a Mack truck all at the same time. It was frustrating because I'm like, I don't feel sick. I don't, and I used to tell my oncologist, I am angry because now I have to make myself sick in order to be healed. And that is very frustrating for me. You know, I had to go to the doctor more times in 2 weeks than I had in the years that I'd been alive. So that was really frustrating. And so the biggest thing was, you know, I had months and months planned. And for me, the toughest part was I literally had to live day by day.
Yes.
Day by day, take each day at a time. Each day was different. I had days that I would break down, days that I'd be fine. And so in terms of advice, I would say feel your feels. And what I mean by that is, you know, you're going to have tough days. I consider it a trauma to be diagnosed with cancer. To being told you have cancer is an extremely traumatizing thing to experience. And like any other trauma, it doesn't go away just because treatment stops. So right now, I don't have any more treatment. I had my last surgery 3 weeks ago. But I still deal with the trauma of being diagnosed in the sense that, you know, right now one of my hips is bothering me, and I'm like, I hope to God it's not cancer. You know, that's my immediate thought. And so it's a traumatizing thing to experience. So I try really hard to live day by day, but it's hard. It's, to be really honest, it's hard. It's hard to, you know, I'm a person of faith. And it's hard to be appreciative of the healing that I've received without feeling a little bit of anger and resentment that I had to go through what I had to go through.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have that conflict going on all the time, in that, you know, I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to be a leader to a group of women on a team, and also deal with my own issues in terms of being diagnosed. And I try not to get stuck on things.
Right.
But it's hard. It really is. And for me to say that it's not hard, I'd be lying. Like, just because the actual chemical treatment is done, there's still a lot of, as I said, trauma. So if there's any advice I would give to anyone who has been diagnosed or is going through the treatment right now, one of the best things I did was my oncologist had recommended a therapist, and this therapist happened to specialize specifically with cancer patients. And so I started seeing her probably after my first treatment, maybe. And I still see her. See her. So I have, you know, a lot of people want to keep it to themselves. Like when I was first diagnosed, I wanted to keep it to myself. I didn't tell anybody, just my family and maybe close friends, just to, you know, keep me in their prayers. And one of my good friends, who's a person of faith, highly encouraged me to let people know, because from the perspective of allow God to allow people to use people to help me. And I think that was one of the best decisions that I made, because on the tough days, you know, I'm if anybody sees my Facebook page, I didn't create a separate. Some people create separate pages. to inform people of their progress. And I didn't do that. I just did it. I laid it all out on my own Facebook page. I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing. For me, it was helpful because I gained a lot of
healing. That was your
support.
healing process.
Yeah, I gained a lot of support from that, and I was very thankful that I was thankful that I did it. I was thankful that my friend recommended that I do it. I was thankful that I started seeing a therapist so that I could what I call word vomit all over her office because like I'm mom, so I feel like I have to be strong for everybody.
Correct.
And I needed an outlet to be not strong. And so I also have a very good cancer community, for lack of a better description, of women who have gone through the breast cancer journey that help me, that help, that know exactly the sleepless nights after, because of all the I can't even think of, and the chemo brain, like I'm just experiencing, which you just blank and you can't remember words. Steroids, that's the word I was thinking of, because of all the stuff through your body, like not being able to sleep in a night and being able to like text in a Facebook group and be like, is anybody awake? Yes, I'm awake. Stuff like that. That's really helpful to have that. So to answer your question in a nutshell, recommendations: get a therapist, find a community of women who may have experienced it, and also don't keep it on your own. Don't keep it for yourself. You're gonna lose people. You're gonna lose friends who are just that are gonna disappoint you. And that's okay. Some people can handle the trauma and some people just can't. And, the worst thing is people disappointing you, but there are also people there that want to help. I want to be there. And so that's my advice, but I can go on and on.
That's okay. That's your forum. That's your forum. And,
question though.
Yes, Alamayu.
What has been the support like from your athletes and people that coach?
Oh my goodness!
Let's say as a motivation to like press on to the problem that you haven't got.
Say that again.
Say that again, Alamayu. What has been your support from your team?
The support from your athletes that you coach, and also do they see it as a motivation to press on through their problem?
Or do you see it as a motivation to press on through them?
Yeah. So when I was, so essentially I was going through treatment all last season, and we could not have had a successful season without my assistant coaches and the understanding and the resilience of my team. They were phenomenal. Essentially what I had to do was, one of the good things one of the things that transferred from being an athlete was just I was pretty in tune with my body. And so, I can tend to be uber focused on things to a fault. My husband tells me all the time, everybody's not like that, Leah, you gotta calm down. So for me, I knew after my first treatment, my first treatment was at the end of the summer. So my season hadn't started back. So I already knew that I would be out for a week. I wouldn't be able to focus. I lost focus. I was exhausted. I was tired. So kind of how I planned the season was that I would be out for a week and then I'd be there for 2 weeks, out for a week, there for 2 weeks. And so when I was out for a week, my assistant coach was the man. He was the one that kept the ball moving.
Yeah.
And my athletes, as I said, the first part, it was during the summer. So I had a few athletes in town, and they were extremely supportive. And my assistant knew from the beginning of, okay, I'm I probably tell him way more than he really wants to know. But I told him
He was your
I'm going
backbone. That's why he
I'm
was your
gonna
assistant.
yeah. So I was like, I'm going in for mammogram. I have to get a biopsy. I like even when I had found out we were going to be going to a swim meet in Baton Rouge, and so he was picking me up to go to the swim meet.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 minutes before he arrived was when I was diagnosed. And I was a hot mess. And
I can
my
imagine.
husband was at work. My kids were at home. My husband was at work. And I didn't want my kids to see me like break down. So I ended up going in my assistant's car and I just broke down there so that my kids could see me. And needless to say, I couldn't go to the meet. So he knew, you know, for quite a few weeks before we told the team, and he kept everything very normal for those, like the girls that were there didn't know anything was going on with me. They just thought I was going to doctor's appointments, no big deal and stuff like that. So he kept the ball rolling. He kept everything a little bit more normal.
Positive.
For the team. Yeah. And so once everybody returned back from school, as I said, I was gone for a week, then back, gone for a week. And so he and my diving coach did a really great job of keeping it as normal as possible. And the girls were very supportive at first. So I'm not one for wigs. I had a hat that I wore all the time. It was like my hat that I wore. But after a while, I felt pretty comfortable not having to wear the hat. So they got used to seeing me bald and and stuff like that. So they were great. They were extremely resilient, extremely understanding.
Was it a hard transition from being a student swimmer to a coach swimmer? Is it easier?
I think it depends on the person.
Mm.
I think it depends on the person. But for me, no, it wasn't difficult.
And with, okay, you're now a survivor, which is good. With breast cancer, did you also have to change your diet along with, or did you always have a specific diet throughout your whole life? And then you have to change it up a bit. I don't know.
No, there's a should and actual. So I have a very sweet tooth, and so if there's anything, I definitely did not have a specific diet throughout my life at all. No, not as much as I probably should have. Obviously,
So
when I was competing, I did. I ate well. I did what I needed to do. Not a lot of fried foods, reduced my sugar, all that kind of stuff when I competed, when I was an athlete. But during cancer, my main thing was that they don't recommend eating, how do I explain it? Like fresh vegetables, like fresh, so like lettuce. I didn't eat any salads. I didn't, if I had any fruit, it was like fruit that can be peeled. I'm not an apple person, so it really didn't, my apples weren't my thing. But if I did have apple, it needed to be peeled. Any fruit that I had to wash it for 30 seconds. So essentially when I was going through treatment, I didn't have any salad, nothing, no fresh salad of any sort. Like if I went to a store. So for me, I was like, no problem. I don't need to have salad. That's fine with me. And that was mainly because your immune system is low. And so any sort of bacteria or simple things that maybe your body can process when you're healthy, when you're going through chemo, it's not, something simple may cause a significant issue. So the main diet thing was that no fresh, no lettuce, no fresh salad type thing, and any fruit that you eat, it had to be peeled.
Right.
They also say to limit the amount of red meat you have, and which I did. And that was mainly, again, because it's more along the lines of limiting how much your kidney had to process things. Because again, I'm getting poison put into my body. My kidney's already working to flush out all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Red meat was something that they asked to reduce to limit the amount of
So
how
no
much your
burgers,
kidney
no
and
steak.
liver. Yeah, no, well, I mean, I ate them. I just didn't eat them often, and I just generally don't eat them often anyway.
Right.
They just wanted you to just limit that. But salads, like I avoided, and quite frankly, when I was going through, so they threw everything in the kitchen sink for me. So I went through the whole gamut, chemo, radiation, surgery. I went through the whole thing, and so for me, my worst side effect and the toughest side effect that I experienced was my taste was really affected.
Right.
By the time I got through it, I just ate whatever I could eat. Just even water tasted horrible. Water tasted absolutely horrible. Anything sweet, like I said, I had a sweet tooth. Anything sweet tasted horrible. Sugar was not my friend. So in terms of diet, you're just kind of eating what you can eat just to keep up with fuel. Yeah, it's not, at that point, you're not being very picky as to what you're eating.
Yeah. Well, I am so glad to have Leah with us this morning. It was a blessing. And the picture that you have shown us has given us a bit of your journey from Barbados to United States of America in New Orleans. So before you go, what's it like in New Orleans?
New Orleans is like a Caribbean country in the U.S. It really is. Like the architecture reminds me of the Caribbean. The roads remind me of the Caribbean. And yeah, it's good. It's nice. It's
when you're driving, do you see CSI New Orleans Star? Because you're always watching those guys.
It's funny. No, I actually it's funny though. Before COVID, there would be a lot of I get a lot of emails from the school saying, "Oh, you can't do these parking spaces because there's going to be a film crew. There's going to be this, whatever." And I'm thinking in my head, "Oh, it's a newscast or it's this or that." And but there's more and more movies I'm watching that's filmed in New Orleans or Louisiana or somewhere. And actually, my husband and I watched a movie last weekend, and we were like, we know there. It was in New Orleans proper. I was like, oh, I guess there are a lot of movies that are done here. But no, I don't ever. And again, I don't go in New Orleans very often. I live in Kenner, which is more by the airport, but yeah, I do not see stars at all, really. Watch me, I leave today and I see a star. But yeah, I don't really see anybody.
But just so you know, Leah, you are our star. So if you
thanks
were
for
not
saying
looking for a star, you are our star. Remember that. And I always give kudos to our women of history, and you are a legend, a living legend.
Thank you.
A lot of people don't see that, but anyone who comes on our show, especially those who, as we say, in the background, we're not highlighting you to the point of stardom. But when we say you are a star, you are that individual who inspires us. You've given us hope. You've also shown us that if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin, and it doesn't matter the gender that you are. And that is what we're trying to put out there for anyone who watches our show. Um, One of the things, as I said, I admire you was when I first saw you in the waters in Trinidad swimming. And yes, I don't say I'm a follower, you just keep track kind of thing. And when we started our program was just because of COVID. We're home, we're doing nothing. What can we talk about? What can we do? And then we started to stray and say, you know something? Whatever became of so and so, we don't hear much. And I know you were on the news sometime back. I think it was last month. I can't remember what you were talking about. And I sat and I said, I'm going to have Leah Martindale on my show. Beautiful person. I've watched her. And Barbadians are always glued to the TV when we have a little body there on the TV. So when we see folks like you on TV, we are so proud because we are only 166 square miles, 4 towns, and 11 parishes. When we say Barbados, they only know Barbados because of Rihanna or Sir
Yeah.
Garfield. So it's like,
Yeah, sure.
Leah Martindale? Who's Leah Martindale? And I would go, excuse me? Hello? So you feel good. And they always say to us, you would always find a Barbadian any part of the world. And that's a fact. So you're in beautiful New Orleans. And I know sometime back they had you would not have been there during the hurricane. But when you find a Barbadian in these different parts of the world, because people stick to Florida or New York. So when you actually get that opportunity to go other parts of the US, you get a taste, a see, and a feel because each state is different culturally. And
Yes.
for you, you now have to bring your family in a different culture because you would have lived in Florida with a lot of the Cuban Buenos Dias, and you have, I would think, a larger Barbadian community in Florida than you would have in Louisiana, sorry, in New Orleans. And just before we go, I want you to really just say for you right now, where's your next step? How does your journey continue for you at the moment?
Um, right now, I am just trying to build the team here at Tulane to get us even better. As I said, I'm still trying to live day by day,
Yeah, yeah.
taking it each day as they come.
Hmm.
I actually coach Danielle Titus now, so I'm trying to get her qualified for Olympics.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm just trying to.
Titus, is she there?
Yep, she
She was the
is.
young girl that was here. Yes. And
Yes, yes.
she swam, which you were in a club, weren't you? I think you were in a specific club here in Barbados. I can't remember
Oh
what it
yeah, I
was.
was in Alpha. Yeah, I was in
Yes.
Alpha and in Paris, and she's in Alpha also.
Right, right.
I'm trying to be the best mother
Go for your
I
own.
possibly can be, and best wife that I possibly could be, and best friend as I possibly could be. But I think the two biggest priority is trying to raise 3 children as best as I can.
Yes.
I'm absolutely failing, but I'm trying to do that the best that I can, and also to build this program. So
And we know you are going to make it a successful program. And as you say, God had a calling for you. So if your calling is to be the best coach, the best wife, and the best mother, and the best friend, that you shall be. Yes?
thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Dear brother, do you have anything to add for Leah? Since we don't have Lionel, he's listening. Can't get on. Can you hear me, Alamayu?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, beautiful. You have anything to add? I know you're listening. If
No,
Daddy
I
was
just
there, I'm sure he would have lots of questions for her, but he's not there.
yeah, but he was just asking me who the swimmer was. So I just told him who it was. But I just want to say, it's good to highlight people like this because we come from a small country where
Yes.
a lot of kids may have hopes and dreams of becoming these professional athletes or doing this big thing.
Hold your
They
mic. I'm losing you. Hold your mic because we're losing you.
yeah, right. So you have all these potential athletes in Barbados, but they go nowhere because they either have to go to the States or some other country, get exposure and get caught with the right people into make
Hmm.
something of yourself. So it's good to have someone who has left here and made it somewhat in a sport that dominated by mainly white people. And
Yeah.
so all the little ones, all the young girls and all the young boys who maybe their parents, mom, yeah, want to join a swim club, or I want to go to a quiet center to learn to swim. It's really good. So when you highlight people like these, it shows that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you can make it from any place, whether it be small, big, poor, rich, whatever. Once you put your mind to it, and you have people who support you and put you in the right areas and right lanes and so on, that you could then you should make it. And then when you get that stage that you are now, where you can make an impact on others and really show them that there's nothing that can stop you. There's mind over matter. That's how I see it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Alamayo. And before we go, any encouraging thoughts, Leah, for our guests?
I would definitely agree with him. Once you can, your mind is the biggest tool and asset that you can have. But it's also the most challenging thing to do things. And but I would agree 100%. If you have a dream and you have something that you want to look towards to be successful, it's going to take some sacrifice, but the reward is immense. The feeling
Yeah.
of accomplishment is immense.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I remember you're not just Leah Martindale to us. You are your sister, and you are our own special star. Stay safe. We send our love to you, to your family. God bless. And thank you for watching Keeping It Real with Marie and Lionel, with our co-host Alemayu Debaya. We had our special guest Leah Martindale Stansel, who is in New Orleans in the US. Thank you. God bless. And remember, wear your mask and sanitize. Stay safe, folks. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.